All right, everyone. Well, welcome. We're here on Facebook, and I'm talking to the invisible girl over there. But anyhow, we're live on Facebook, and my name is Dr. Kurt Fiznick, and my invisible person, my invisible guest there, that's the ghost of Katie Larking. Anyhow, you know, folks, cancer passed heart disease last year or in 2017, so I'm a year behind. They passed heart disease for the first time as being the number one killer as far as diseases go. And you think about that, and you look at what causes cancer, and they say that cancer is almost entirely man-made. They say hey, Katie, I was just introducing you as the ghost of Katie, because nobody's sitting in your chair. But I was just talking about kind of that cancer passed heart disease as the number one killing disease back in 2017.
Wow, it's amazing.
It really is. And when you consider that, I've read that 90% of cancer is man-made.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? And look at the world we live in today, compared to 50 years ago. How many more environmental toxins and chemicals are we exposing our body to today? And each year it's also increasing. And so unless you're consciously aware of that and doing something about it, why are you going to be any different?
That's right. So, Katie, I thought what I'd do is I'd share something here that I had. I brought this up. And here, this is a well, that's Facebook there, but here's a John Hopkins report.
Right.
Can you see that?
Yeah, yep.
And so this is John Hopkins. John Hopkins says, after years of telling people, I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you. This is October 2nd, 2009, so it was 10 years ago. And they say, after years of telling people chemotherapy is the only way to try to eliminate cancer, John Hopkins is finally starting to tell people there's an alternative way. So it's this cancer update from John Hopkins from a decade ago. It says every person has cancer cells. Well, we already knew that. It says that cancer cells occur 6 to more than 10 times in a person's lifetime. And when the immune system isn't strong enough, the cancer cells can't be destroyed, and they multiply and they form tumors. But it says that cancer, it indicates that a person has multiple nutritional deficiencies. It could be to genetic, environmental, food, and lifestyle. And they say to overcome the multiple nutritional deficiencies, change in diet, including supplements, will strengthen the immune system. And then they say, and then it says chemotherapy involves poisoning the rapidly growing cancer cells, but also destroys rapidly growing healthy cells in the GI tract, the bone marrow. It can cause organ damage to organs like liver, kidney, hearts, lungs. And it talks about radiation, things like that. But I'm going to scroll right down here because this really fits in what we want to talk about tonight. It says cancer cells feed on sugar. Sugar is a cancer feeder. By cutting off sugar, it cuts off one important fluid supply to cancer cells. Sugar substitutes like NutraSweet equal spoonful are made with aspartame, and they're harmful. And a better substitute would be like manuka honey, molasses, things like that. And they say table salt has a chemical added to it to make it white in color, and then they give some better alternatives. But they're talking about milk that produces mucus. They're talking about cancer cells thrive in an acid environment. They say a diet made up of 80% fresh fruits and vegetables is good for you. They say, they say avoid coffee, tea, things like that. But coffee, actually, if it's cooked right, is actually anti-cancer. Green tea, black tea, things like that. They say don't microwave, all those important things like that. But I just thought it was interesting to kind of lead off our conversation with that. What do you think of that?
Excellent. I just really can't even believe that document's on the American Cancer Society. It's probably buried. Is it buried down there? But, because you just don't hear, isn't the American Cancer Society government backed, or is it independent?
No. I mean, I think they're a nonprofit, so they're independent. But, we know how most nonprofits work, right?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But here, so before we start any discussion, let's watch this short video. I think you'll like this one. Watch this. Oh, wait. I got to get the sound. Where do I got to do that sound again?
You got to do a new share. You go new share, and then you've got to tick the 2 little boxes so it shares computer audio.
Computer sound right here?
Yeah.
And, okay. And then this one, and that one, and then,
Yeah.
all right. I think I got it.
I love candy. Does anyone else like candy? A lot of you. Well, so do cancer cells.
Oh.
Cancer cells love sugar. As many of you know, cancer remains the second leading cause of death in the United States, which means we still need better therapeutics for our cancer patients. Today, I'd like to tell you about an exciting new approach to cancer therapy based on sugar metabolism. We've actually known for a long time that cancer cells love sugar. Almost 100 years ago, in 1924, a famous German scientist and Nobel laureate named Otto Warburg observed that cancer cells eat a lot more sugar than normal cells. So this observation that cancer cells love sugar is known as the Warburg effect. And the Warburg effect tells us that normal cells can stop after just one piece of candy, but cancer cells can't stop eating candy. And we do take advantage of the Warburg effect for diagnosis of cancer through PET imaging. Here's a PET scan of a patient with pancreatic cancer. The patient was given radioactively labeled glucose, which lights up when it concentrates in an organ. The pancreas normally doesn't light up because it normally doesn't like to eat so much sugar. But in this case, the patient has cancer cells in the pancreas. It's eating up all the sugar, concentrating it, and causing it to light up in the PET scan, and we're able to diagnose the patient. So it's good that we're taking advantage of sugar metabolism and the Warburg effect for cancer diagnosis, but I want to take it a step further and use it for therapy. Well, in addition to eating a lot more sugar, cancer cells also metabolize sugar differently. There are 2 major ways to metabolize sugar. One way is to use oxygen, which we breathe in, and convert it to carbon dioxide, which we breathe out. If we don't have access to enough oxygen, we can also convert sugar to lactate, also known as lactic acid. And we've all experienced this during exercise when we're unable to deliver enough oxygen to our muscles. We run out of breath, and we start getting lactic acid buildup, and we feel that muscle burn. From an energy point of view, it's much better to metabolize sugar using oxygen, because you can generate up to 36 energy molecules called ATPs. If you convert sugar to lactate, you only generate up to 2. Well, normal cells take sugar, use oxygen, and convert sugar to carbon dioxide, generating a lot of energy molecules. But cancer cells eat a lot more sugar, and they convert most of it to lactate, even when they have plenty of oxygen available, and they don't generate much energy. So why would cancer cells use such inefficient metabolism? Well, to answer this question, we have to think about what a cancer cell needs. A cancer cell needs to grow and divide and make more cancer cells. And you can't make more cancer cells simply with energy, just as you can't build a new house simply with electricity. So yes, we can make energy from sugar, but we can make other things, like DNA and RNA, which serve as the genetic blueprints for the cell, just as you would need a blueprint to build a house. You can also generate carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, just as you would need building blocks, concrete, insulation, and other items to build a house. And we think that the Warburg effect supports all these biosynthetic pathways that generate cellular building blocks. And if we want to take advantage of the Warburg effect, we have to understand it in more detail. So our favorite form of sugar is called glucose. And glucose is metabolized mainly through a pathway called glycolysis, which has many steps that eventually generates a metabolite called pyruvate. Without oxygen, you can generate lactate from pyruvate. With oxygen, you can generate carbon dioxide. Now, the enzyme that generates pyruvate is called pyruvate kinase, and it's altered in all cancer cells. There are actually two major forms or isoforms of pyruvate kinase, M1 and M2. M1 is found in many normal adult cells, meaning these cells are no longer growing. M2 is found in every cancer cell studied to date. But to make things more complicated, it's also found in some normal growing cells. So what I did in the laboratory was to delete pyruvate kinase M2 from both normal and cancer growing cells and see what would happen. And here's what I found. Normal cells grow well, as you can see in the yellow line, with pyruvate kinase M2. And when I delete it, they completely stop growing, as you can see in the red line. When I do this to cancer cells, they're able to grow with or without M2. So how are they doing this? Is their metabolism changed? Are they rewiring their metabolism? In order to do this, we have to be able to look at their metabolites. And we can't just put them under a microscope and look at metabolites. It's too small. So we need very expensive and sensitive instruments. I've been told that this looks like a Slurpee machine, but this is actually a very expensive instrument called a mass spectrometer. And it can detect thousands of metabolites based on a molecule's mass. These are instruments that Otto Warburg did not have, but we have access to them, and we can study cancer metabolism in great detail. And I want to show you my data using this instrument, but before I do, I don't want you to look at the words. I want you to look at the colors. Is it black, or do you see a lot of colors? If it's black, that means no metabolites are changing. If you see a lot of colors, the metabolites are changing. So let's take a look. As you can see, these cancer cells are completely changing their metabolism. They're increasing their metabolites in yellow and decreasing their metabolites in blue so that they can still grow without M2. So it's like this. If cancer cells are invading this Wharton Center at Michigan State University, and we figure out that they're coming in through Wilson Road, so what do? Well, we block Wilson Road. We delete that road so they can't get in. And what do? They find a new way in. They rewire their route. Even though it has more traffic and it's more indirect, they still find a way in. So without M2, normal cells stop growing, and cancer cells continue to grow by rewiring their metabolism. So what I'm doing now in the laboratory is blocking multiple roads at once, multiple genes, so that cancer cells stop growing while normal cells continue to grow. So we just talked about glycolysis and pyruvate kinase, but metabolism is much more complicated than this. And I want to give you an idea of that. So I'm going to shrink glycolysis and move it to the upper left corner of your screen. And now I'm going to fill in the rest of metabolism. So take a deep breath and let it out. As you can see, metabolism is very complicated, and this is still just a simplified map of metabolism. And remember, normal cells came from cancer cells. So some pathways are shared and some pathways are different, which means we have to understand normal complicated metabolism as well as cancer complicated metabolism. But this is a very exciting avenue for therapy because here are just some of the enzymes that are mutated, deleted, or somehow altered in cancer cells. So these are all potential targets for therapy. So here's our research strategy. First, I want to identify all the key metabolic pathways that help cancer. Then, I want to do deeper mechanistic studies that tell us exactly how each pathway is helping cancer cells. Does it help their survival, their growth, or their invasion, or something else? Then I want to take all of this information and use it to design personalized therapy. Because as you know, all individuals are different with their own genetics, diets, and environments. So we have just begun to understand different metabolism in cancer and taking advantage of it for therapy. There are many different types of cancers with all kinds of mutations, but they all have one thing in common. They all have to eat. Cancer cells have altered sugar metabolism, and I want to starve cancer.
What do you think of that? That's pretty cool,
That's
isn't
amazing. Yeah, there's a lot of science in there, isn't there?
it? Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I remember, you know, when I was going through all my biochemistry classes, all those charts that she was showing, we had to learn all that stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's
You
a
know?
lot of detail. So, Kurt, it made me think when you were sharing that video, there was another video.
Oh, hang on. Hang on. Oh, no.
What?
Hang on. I'm listening to another video.
Oh, that's okay.
Hang on. I gotta just shut this down.
Okay.
Okay, hang on. Okay, now I'm back.
Okay, good. So someone shared a video with me a couple of weeks ago, and it was on cancer and sugar. And it was more, I guess, it wasn't so sciencey, but it was more a practical example of somebody who was a cancer survivor, and they had gone ahead and cut out all the sugar. And I guess the most extreme version of that to cut out sugar would be the keto diet, which you know a lot about, because the keto diet is designed to cut out all sugars pretty much to a bare minimum. And so, yeah, and so really, as we've discussed before, it's not a protein diet, it's a fat diet, because it's like 70% fat, 30% protein. And this gentleman on this show, and it was on the news, shared how he really just turned his cancer around. Like everything just started changing as soon as he just started going on the keto diet. So that was really interesting. And that was what somebody shared with me. Although, you know, and people say, well, if that's the case, how come everybody doesn't know about it? And I guess to answer that question, I think there's a lot of conflicting information out there. I mean, even I found this document on a government website. It says the facts about diets and cancer can be confusing, and certain foods, and people are saying certain foods should be avoided. And so this discusses the two common theories. So one, it goes on to acid food, but then the next one says eating sugar increases cancer cell growth as a theory. Then it says sugar is a type of carbohydrate. There are several types of sugars. The commonly known ones are glucose, lactose, and fructose, which are found in different foods. All body cells, including cancer cells, prefer to use sugar for fuel. This is what the government's saying. However, cancer cells will also use protein and fat for fuel in the absence of sugar. This includes your own protein, your muscle, and your own fat stores. Therefore, cutting out sugar will not starve the cancer cells. So, you know, and this is why, and then it's going on to recommendation of foods. It's saying examples of carbohydrates. I can't even believe they wrote this. They put on here, okay, fine, breads, sugars, pasta, dairy, starchy vegetables. But then they wrote on here, refined sugar foods such as soft drink, cordial, and grapefruit juice and drink, and lollies. And then it goes on to say why carbohydrates important in our diet. Yet in the previous line, they're now talking about sugar and lollies. I mean, how confusing is that?
That's right. Yeah, so no wonder people don't know what to do. I mean, I go visit people in the hospital that have cancer and other diseases without getting into a lot of different subjects. But you go there and they have soda machines. You go down to the cafeteria and they're feeding you all sorts of highly refined sugars. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, but, you know, I guess it is common sense that you start eating healthier, but just, I guess it also comes back to that, you know, doctors are not trained in dietetics or nutrition. They're a general practitioner. And so they don't really get into the field of diet and food intake and how that interacts with the body. A good GP probably would, but others may not have much knowledge of that. And so I guess this comes back to it's really important for people to take responsibility for their own health and also do their own research and find a way that, you know, works best for them as well.
That's right.
So that's interesting. But in terms of the topic, cancer and sugar, how does this relate to weight loss? Do you want to draw any conclusions there?
Well, I think that, so many people are looking at weight loss. They're looking at their weight, and really what they should be looking at is they should be looking at their health, right?
Yeah.
Because we could say which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first? Did they get fat or were they unhealthy? Right? And I tend to believe that a healthy person doesn't get fat. Right? Because their body's not going to crave the sugars. It's not going to crave the bad foods, things like that. So really, I really believe that the unhealthy person is the one that's going to be overweight. So those of us that are overweight, we still have something wrong with us. I haven't found the root cause of everything yet.
Yeah. And so, go on.
Oh, so that's what I was just going to say. Like when we're looking at sugar, then we really have to take a look at like she was saying, we really have to take a look at what is the sugar doing to us. And some people they may think, well, I'm just eating good food, like bagels and things like that. They're not eating, candy, lollies, like you would say down there. They're not drinking soda, but their diet is 90% refined carbohydrates.
Yeah.
That's sugar.
Yeah. So now we've got a twofold effect. There's no doubt that a poor diet, can increase your chances of developing cancer. And I don't think there'd be any arguments from any government or otherwise about that comment. But, also then you've got eating poor diet, eating lots of sugar is obviously going to gain weight as well. So there is this connection. So even though this might seem like, well, why are we talking about this topic? What's this got to do with weight loss? It's like what you said. If you make this about being healthy and you want to do as much as you can to avoid, diseases, lifestyle diseases, aging diseases, then it makes sense that you want to maintain that healthy body weight. And so now you've got the benefit of, you've probably lost some weight if you've done that. And then you've got the benefit of also achieving your goal of weight loss. But at the end of the day, it was all about being a healthier you, feeling better, looking better, and less likely to suffer from disease and illness.
That's right. That's right. And once you can get that all under control, you're gonna live longer. You're gonna live healthier. And just like I talked about on my presentation that I did down in Australia 2 months ago, it's not about increasing your lifespan as much as it is about increasing your health span. How do you stay healthier for longer periods of time on your life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm really glad you shared that information from John Hopkins?
John Hopkins, yeah.
Yeah, because that's published on the internet. It's, a credible source, and it's both credible in the eyes of like natural, probably that information, natural therapies, but also traditional, because it's, it's on there and doctors would share it. So that would be a great resource to point people to too.
That's right. And the other thing that I liked about that video, when you watch that video that she gave at the TED Talk, so she's at University of Michigan. University of Michigan seems to be doing a lot of really good studies. I don't like where they take the studies sometimes, but they do a lot of really good studies. And so when you watch that video, and she was saying that, okay, so the cancer cell, if we block this pathway, the cancer is going to find how to get the food another route, right? It's going to take the detour, and it's going to get there. And so when I start looking at that, you know what I start thinking about right away?
What?
Resveratrol and fucoidan.
Really?
Yeah, because what are the properties of resveratrol and fucoidan? Also, EG, CG, and omega-3s kind of have some of the same properties, but fucoidan and resveratrol, they have the anti-angiogenic property. What does that mean?
It cuts off the blood supply to cancer cells.
That's right. So if it cuts off the blood supply, so if you shut off the sugar supply over here and you cut off all the other routes with the resveratrol by cutting off the anti-angiogenic properties of the resveratrol and the fucoidan, haven't you effectively done what she's researching right now? Isn't that research already done?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's already done. It's just that she's not looking in the same direction because University of Michigan tries to apply it to, drug therapy, pharmaceuticals. That's right, because that's what they that's what they get paid to do.
Yeah. It's amazing because I was watching this other video last week, and there were people on it trying to get off sugar, and they just did an affirmation. I hate sugar. I hate sugary foods. And they just kept repeating this affirmation over and over. And they repeated it so much that it got to the point they didn't actually like to pick up the sugary foods anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to throw that in there because I found that quite interesting. I mean, I guess I've programmed my mind. The only sugar my brain accepts would be like fruit sugar, but I really don't like Coke or Coca-Cola with like lots of sugar in it. I find for me it tends to make me thirsty if I have something quite sugary. Then I kind of start to get a little bit parched, and I go, oh, that's made me thirsty, and I don't like that feeling.
Right.
Yeah, because eating excess sugar does make you thirsty as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I quit drinking soda. Oh, I think it was 11 years ago. I quit drinking soda 11 years ago after I read a study that said that if you have 2 cans of soda a week, you increase your risk of pancreatic cancer by 80%.
Wow. And that leads straight back to that whole talk. And she even showed a scan of the cancer cells. Wasn't it in the pancreas she was showing?
That's right. She did. She showed a PET scan of the pancreas, and you saw it just lit up.
Yeah. And so you just said that study says it increases your chances, and they actually use that as a diagnostic test to see if you've actually got pancreatic cancer.
Yep, by using a radioactive form of sugar, and they can measure it because the pancreas normally, like she was saying, doesn't take the sugar in, but when you have cancer cells, it does.
Wow. I mean, all of that is very convincing information. I mean, it's incredible. So I think it's really good to be aware of these sorts of things so people can be more informed and empowered to make decisions for themselves about their health.
That's right. Yeah, and as we move forward in life, it's going to take a couple of decades. It might even take a couple generations, It might be 20, 30, 40 years down the road before people have gone full circle and they really realize that diet is the ultimate medicine.
Yeah. Amazing.
It's going to take a while. So
it will take a while. It actually makes me think, I'll share this last story before we go, but when I was working at the hospital, they brought out their new plan, their new strategy up until 218 to 223, and they're all happy, and they said, do you know what the biggest change is? And they said the biggest change is that we're putting a lot more focus on preventative health, educating people about lifestyle and all of that, because they said we just cannot accommodate the sheer numbers coming through the doors of our hospitals, and we certainly can't accommodate them moving forward into the future and continuing to increase at the rate they're increasing. It's just not feasible anymore. We can't do it. So we have to actually start directing more funds towards prevention to try and prevent people actually walking through the door in the first place. And I was blown away. But it makes sense, right? Because it's hitting like a critical situation. Because how much more money can we just keep throwing at it? It's really about going to come back to about educating people so they can be empowered and informed and make better lifestyle choices.
Yeah. So is the hospital actually moving forward with having a good preventative program? Do you know? Because I know you don't work there any longer. But
well, they've sort of made a start, but basically they do their prevention through community centers, but not implementing something hospital wide. See, I think it's better health promotion stuff, and this is where I think it goes wrong a little bit. It looks for those most in need. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be helping those most in need. Of course we should. But I think that if we focus more on population health, that, social conformity will kick in, and then it'll have more of an impact on a greater number of people. So, and to do that, then you would need to implement programs like you just suggested in the hospital as a whole, instead of just looking at the outback community center that's focusing on just a small group of individuals. But I guess they focus on them because they're the most likely people to come in through the door and costing the system the most money. So it's a massive topic. You could talk about it for hours, but it's really interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when I came down there and talked, and I won't get into the whole thing, but they make good money when you're dying. So
Yeah.
if they can just make it so it takes a long time for you to die, they can make more money.
Yeah, it's just a horrible thought.
Yeah. Oop, I shouldn't probably said that, but that's the truth, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think not everyone's like that. It's like what you said when you were sharing a medical device, a therapeutic device you were using, and some people said they didn't want to use it because they wouldn't have as many patients, because if it helps them that much, then they won't have patients. And I'm like floored that someone would actually say that. So
Yeah.
there's some people like that, but you want to think that the majority of people are good and mean well and actually don't think that at all.
That's right. So, well, Katie, thanks for jumping on again tonight. And I always find this a great call to give out some of that doctor information to people and help people figure out how to get healthier and all of that. So, I'll let you close up the call.
Great. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for watching the recording. If you're watching the recording, we'll bring you another topic next week. Again, if you are, will want to say in closing, if you do have cancer or if you are trying to lose weight, it's very important that you consult your health professional first and follow their advice. We're just sharing our thoughts and ideas. So
That's right. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
bye.